Hi everyone, this is Steve Black with Let's Talk Referrals. Welcome to my podcast and thanks for coming back if you've been here before. Today, because of launching my latest course talking about telling stories with your business and the upcoming masterclass I'm building, which hopefully will launch in April, I wanted to touch on the subject of public speaking. Right? The thing about public speaking is most people are afraid to do it. It can be paralyzing. You probably know the feeling. You can work for weeks and weeks and weeks, learn the material, prepare the presentation, and you're nervous. And it's the time, it's the moment. You've got to go out and do this, and your throat is dry, you begin to stutter, your brain feels empty, and you've forgotten everything you've learned. And that's an anxiety that a lot of people have, no matter whether they're an extrovert or an introvert. I'm sure it's more acute for introverts. But I think everybody, no matter how good they are at this, are nervous. I worry about actually getting out there and doing it. And the actual nervousness is caused by a rush of adrenaline. And it causes this fight or flight reaction. This reaction basically says when we're confronted with a threatening situation, the adrenaline rush stimulates our physiological reactions. And as speakers, we can use that to our advantage instead of holding us back. Our nerves are good if we learn to control them. And to me, the adrenaline of being out in front of a crowd and sharing my knowledge, my wisdom, is kind of exciting. But yes, I still get very, very, very nervous. And I've listened to a lot of speakers. I've heard a lot of people tell the same story more than once, and the one key thing that they all seem to do is they repeat the story exactly the same the second time or the third time. And maybe a very small tangent, depending if they're opening it up for questions, but they seem to repeat it. And what that teaches me is they learnt their script so well that they know it off by heart, and they could repeat it 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, and they just keep going and going. Okay, I'm very fortunate doing this podcast because you don't get to see me on screen. You don't get to see me being a little bit nervous, and I can't see you laughing at me. Not that you would, but you might. You know, I've got a funny accent. I'm in Texas. Obviously East Texas, you can tell, right? Anyway, back to the point. Most people rank public speaking as their number one fear. And this is the scary part. They fear it above dying, which means it's really, really, really scary. So a couple of hints and tips I've got for when I'm doing it. For the minutes leading up to when I've got to speak, I really try to go over the script in my head. I try to focus on what I'm going to talk about so that I can actually use that adrenaline rush early on to help me talk about the subject rather than make me fear getting up there, right? And the fear of public speaking is very serious to some, okay? And I'm not saying, there's this fallacy that great communicators are born, not made, and it's completely untrue. People are programmable, they're trainable, they're coachable. It's beautiful. It means that your current programming about fear of public speaking can be changed. You can learn to speak up with confidence, you can stand up for what you believe in, even if that's never been the case before. And yes, it takes a lot of nerves to do that. But what you could do right now is actually try speaking up about a subject you love, whether it be a hobby, an interest, a skill, your business. I mean, you didn't get into business to be miserable, so you're obviously passionate about what you do. And that was one of the things we talked about on last week's podcast. Why do you do what you do? And if you're really passionate about it and somebody asks you a question about it, you could probably talk for quite some time on that topic. So imagine you're talking to that one person about the topic, but you end up talking to 10 people about the topic, or 20 people about the topic, or 30 people about the topic. In BNI chapters, every member gets an opportunity every week in the BNI meeting to actually give a 45 or a 60-second weekly presentation about their business, tell a little story, and ask for a specific referral. That's a perfect example of standing up and publicly speaking in front of a group of people. The really good news is the group of people, you've probably known them for a while if you've been in a BNI chapter for a while. But even if you're brand new, the fact that you can actually say that they're there to support you and help you grow helps you overcome that little bit of fear of public speaking. Okay? Not everyone is born with a gift of the gab. I certainly wasn't. Some people are, yes, there's probably no denying that, but for the rest of us, learning how to speak up and learning how to do our weekly presentations or do our feature presentations or do the public speaking, we've had to learn. And we learn by trial and error. We've learned to become more confident. We've learned to become a capable speaker. And I would actually say there's probably no great speakers out there, because if you take the one thing away that they do religiously to be successful, they would actually be a good speaker rather than a great speaker, right? The great speakers are the ones that have memorized it. And I can't remember exactly where I heard this from, but Winston Churchill, Prime Minister of Britain quite some time ago, said that he used to practice for 10 minutes for every 1 hour of presentation. Or he practiced for an hour for every 1 minute. I can't remember which way, probably that second way, right? They practiced for 1 hour for every 1 minute of the presentation. So if he was doing a 30-minute presentation, he actually practiced for 30 hours in total. So he knew exactly what to say, when to say it. And you've seen some of these public speakers, they are very, very good at what they do, but they've practiced. You can do this as well. You've probably heard the speakers. You can be a powerful speaker. As long as you're talking about something you love, that would be the easiest way to get started. But eventually, if you learn your scripts and you practice and you practice and you practice, anyone can deliver a message in such a way that it inspires trust and confidence in their audience. You get to speak one-on-one with your customers. You get to speak one-on-one in meetings or chance encounters. If you network at the Chamber of Commerce, you get to speak one-on-one or one-on-three or one-on-four with different people, and you have the confidence to do that. You're a little bit nervous if you're an introvert, but you get out there and do it, and you can do this. And there is only one thing stopping you from being a public speaker, and that's you. You're the one stopping yourself getting out there and talking about your business. And I get it, it's nervous. It's nerves, right? The trick is, forget what you've heard, forget what you know, right? You've got to get out there and decide what you want to talk about. And it doesn't matter if you never do I've got to present in front of 20, 30, 40 people. Even if you're doing a small presentation to a selection of customers or a selection of investors or your business partners, whatever it is, you've still got to speak in public occasionally. So start small. Start with family and friends. Start by talking to yourself in the mirror. Now, just bearing in mind, if you actually record yourself and play it back, you sound completely different, and you think, my God, my goodness, that sounds terrible. Okay, so ignore how you sound when you play it back, because you will sound different. I was weird about that one. You know, I was actually, when I first started creating videos, a little off-topic story here, I was so nervous creating the videos with nobody watching me that my first video took like 2 days to create, and it was only 3 or 4 minutes long. Because I kept thinking I need to redo that part, or I need to redo this part, or I need to change it, I need to speak up, I need to stand up, I need to sit down. And I was never happy with the end product, so I kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And that was me talking to a webcam on a computer, knowing that somebody would eventually be watching this. I don't even know if it's still out there. If it is, I'm going to have to find it and take it down. It was terrible. I'm joking. That's where we learn, right? People want to see who we are. They want to relate to us. They want to understand us, be part of it. You've got to devote a lot of time to practicing, rehearsing, practice, prepare. Think about your body language. Think about how you look. Think about what you're talking about. Have the scripts prepared. Even when I do some of these podcasts, if it's a topic that I want to make sure I get the point across, I'm actually using a script. When it's something I just want to talk about, occasionally I won't use a script, but I'll have parts of things that I want to cover definitely written down, so make sure I remind me to cover them. Right? For example, in front of me on the screen is my close to the podcast. I want to make sure I get that right, because I want you to follow me on Facebook, or subscribe to my podcast, or check me out on YouTube. All right? But some of what I'm talking about is just notes about subjects. If we dread doing something, we'll procrastinate. So my challenge to you over the next few weeks is find a time and a place where you can actually prepare and talk about one topic for 60 seconds. And talk to a partner, a spouse, a relative, a friend, and ask them what they think. A great way to start, and I've actually got a YouTube video coming out next week or later this week about the elevator speech, right? And there's also a blog that's going to be going up tomorrow about the elevator speech. And you can actually, use the elevator speech as a prime example of talking to somebody you don't know about what you do for a living. And it's only 60 seconds, give or take, right? That's a great place to start. Practice it, practice it, practice it until it becomes natural. Okay? There's other ways to actually become more comfortable doing that. There was actually one of our members quite some time ago that was very, 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 very nervous about doing a feature presentation. And I'd heard this from Dr. Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI, and I've seen it in action. What we told him to do was send out a list of questions to the BNI members saying, what do you want me to talk about during my feature presentation? And say, I will pick 3 or 4 of these questions to answer if you like. So instead of having to create a 10-minute feature presentation, he had 3 questions or 3 or 4 questions that he wanted to answer during his feature presentation instead of making it a PowerPoint presentation. Now it was great. I mean, it was very, 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 very good because he was talking about his passion. He was talking about his business. And he was actually answering people's questions. And you could do the same thing without even getting questions. Think about your customers. What are the 3 top questions that people ask you about your business or your products or your services, or even about you? And then prepare 2-minute, 3-minute responses to each of those questions. That's a 10-minute presentation just by itself, not including an introduction you can throw in there. There's also the trick of moving around the room. I think I move around a little bit too much, but when you're talking, you've got to keep eye contact with the crowd. You look at it. If you see somebody in the crowd that's smiling at when you're talking, refer back to them while you're moving around and looking around. That way you're getting a positive reinforcement from at least one person in the room. And sometimes if you know some of the people in the crowd, you can even mention them by name and they get engaged and they participate in the presentation if you like. So there's different ways you can actually feel more comfortable. Relax, take deep breaths, slow down and talk normally. You can be a public speaker, and it's not because I want you to go out and speak to 3,000 people in a seminar for 3 hours. It's because I feel as a business, you should be able to talk about what you do, how you do it, why you do it, with your customers, with your prospects, with your referral partners without having to rely on just a website or just a brochure or just a business card. And if you want any success from networking at all, you've got to be able to introduce yourself and have conversations about you and your business. You let the other people speak, and you speak, and the other people speak, and you keep going backwards and forwards in the conversation, and that's speaking in public. So starting small, getting yourself started. Every one of you can benefit from speaking. Every one of you. Don't let your fear of public speaking stop you speaking up. Don't let the fear of public speaking stop you growing your business. Network, meet people, talk about your business, get to know people, answer those 3 questions that you've already written down because you know that those are the most popular questions, and be prepared to get out there and be a popular public speaker. You can do this. That's what I've got. If you've got any comments at all, feel free to click on the button, leave me a message or a voicemail in anchor.com. You can send me an email at steve@letstalkreferrals.com. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/@letstalkreferrals. That's the handle they're using now, @letstalkreferrals. Follow and like me on Facebook at facebook.com/letstalkreferrals. And of course, you're listening to this podcast, which will also be on YouTube, but you're listening to it now at anchor.fm/letstalkreferrals. You can visit my website at letstalkreferrals.com. Check out my blog where I share other hints, tips and resources to help you get better referrals, better customers and have a better business. And if you go to the webpage, within a week or 2 of listening to this, you will find a link on the top right hand corner of the webpage that says Telling Stories. That will take you to the course, the free course I've got. It's a 4-part video course on how to tell stories for your business. This is Steve Black with Let's Talk Referrals. Thanks for listening.